The broken SUV. The evening sky was heavy with colors of fire and fading gold. The sun was going down slowly behind the hills, leaving a soft glow that touched the quiet road. A cool breeze carried the smell of dust and dry leaves. The world was preparing to rest. But on that lonely road, a man's troubles were just beginning. A large black SUV stood in the middle of the narrow road. Its powerful engine, which once roared like a beast, now coughed and died with a weak sound. Inside, the driver sat still, his strong hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. His name was Arjun Malhotra, a billionaire known across the country. People bowed in front of him in meetings, newspapers wrote about him, and television called him one of the richest men alive. He had everything money could buy, except, at that moment, he didn't have a working car. Arjun pressed the start button, again and again. The sound of the engine sputtered and fell silent. His forehead wrinkled, and he tapped his gold watch impatiently. His suit, perfectly pressed, seemed out of place on this dusty road. His eyes looked around. No mechanic, no helper, not even a passing car. The road was empty, almost forgotten by the world. For the first time in many years, the billionaire felt helpless. At the corner of the road, 3 children were walking, home. Their bare feet pressed against the rough earth, leaving tiny marks in the dirt. The oldest was a girl, maybe 13. She carried a heavy bag of school books on her thin shoulder. Her 2 younger brothers followed, one holding a broken notebook, the other humming softly to keep away hunger pains. Their clothes were old, torn at the edges, but their eyes carried something that wealth could never buy. Hope, the youngest, boy noticed the black SUV first. Its shining body reflected the last rays of the sun. "Look," he whispered, pointing with his small hand, "such a big car." His brother's eyes widened. They had only seen cars like this on posters or in movies. Never so close, never so real. The girl frowned. She saw the man inside pressing buttons, his face dark with frustration. She hesitated for a moment, then whispered, "He looks like he needs help." Her brothers looked at her in surprise. "But how can we help him?" the middle one asked. "We are only kids." The girl thought of her mother's words. Words, repeated many times when they had nothing to eat. "Help others, even when you have little. God always sees kindness." She took a deep breath and nodded. "We should try." The 3 children walked closer. Dust rose around their small feet as they reached the SUV. The billionaire looked up, his sharp eyes softening in confusion. These children, skinny, poor, and covered in sweat, stood in front of his grand car like tiny shadows of courage. "Sir," the girl said softly, almost afraid. "Do you need help?" Arjun blinked. No one had spoken to him like that in years. Usually, people addressed him with respect, with fear, with long titles. But here stood 3 children, calling him simply Sir, offering help as if he were just another man on the road. He sighed. "The car won't move," he said. His voice carried both irritation and defeat. The youngest boy, no older than 8, smiled shyly. "We can push it, sir." Arjun almost laughed. How could 3 tiny children move a machine as heavy as his SUV? But before he could reply, the children placed their small hands on the back of the car. Dust stuck to their palms. Their shoulders trembled under the effort. "On 3, the girl whispered to her brothers. 1, 2, 3. They pushed with all their strength. Their legs shook. Their breaths came in gasps. But they didn't stop. The road was rough. The tires resisted. But slowly, very slowly, the heavy SUV began to roll forward. Arjun's eyes widened. He felt the car moving, not because of the engine, but because of these children. He quickly turned the wheel, guiding the SUV toward the side of the road. The car rolled a few meters before finally coming to a safe stop near the edge. The children collapsed onto the ground, breathing hard, sweat dripping from their faces. Their small chests rose and fell quickly. But when they looked at the SUV, standing safely, smiles spread across their tired faces. Arjun stepped out of the car. For a moment, he just stood there, silent, staring at them. His heart, which for years had been locked behind walls of wealth and pride, stirred with something he could not name. These children had nothing. Not shoes, not proper clothes, not even food waiting for them at home. Yet they gave him everything they had in that moment. Their strength, their time, their kindness. "Why did you help me?" he asked, his voice softer than before. The girl looked up, wiping dust from her cheek. "Because you needed help." Simple words. No hidden meaning, no demand for money, just truth. Arjun swallowed hard. For a man who dealt in millions every day, for a man who could buy anything he wanted, this simple act of kindness felt priceless. He looked at them again. The sparkle in their eyes, the courage in their small bodies, the innocence in their smiles, and something inside him broke open. The road was still quiet. The sky was now purple, stars beginning to appear. But in that, silence. Arjun Malhotra's heart heard something louder than any engine, louder than any deal, louder than the noise of the world. It heard kindness. And he knew. This was only the beginning. The children's kindness. The night air grew cooler as the SUV finally stood safe at the side of the road. The three children sat on the dusty ground, catching their breath. Their skinny arms trembled from the effort, but their faces glowed with pride. They had done something no one expected. They had moved a machine far heavier than themselves, only because they chose kindness over fear. Arjun Malhotra, the billionaire, stood a few steps away, staring at them in silence. His polished shoes sank slightly into the dirt, an unusual place for a man used to marble floors and red carpets. He was not used to silence, not this kind of silence. Usually, when he arrived anywhere, people rushed to greet him, cameras flashed, voices praised, his name. But here, in this forgotten corner of the city, 3 poor children had helped him without asking his name, without bowing to his power, without demanding anything in return. He cleared his throat, unsure of what to say. Words felt heavy in his mouth. At last he reached into his pocket and pulled out his thick leather wallet. It was full of crisp notes, money that could feed these children's families for months. He stepped forward, holding the cash out. "Here," he said. His voice was firm but gentle. "Take this. You have helped me, and I want to give you something in return." The youngest boy's eyes widened at the sight of the money. His small stomach growled softly. He hadn't eaten since morning. But before he could move, the girl, the eldest, placed her hand on his shoulder and shook her head. She looked up at Arjun, her dark eyes shining not with greed, but with quiet dignity. "No, sir," she whispered. "We don't want money." Arjun froze. "What?" The girl's voice grew steadier. "Mama always says, help others even if you have little. We didn't help you for money. We helped because you needed help." Her words hit him like a wave. Arjun had lived in a world where nothing came for free, where every smile, every handshake, every partnership carried a price. He could not remember the last time someone had offered him kindness without expecting something in return. He looked at the children again. Their clothes were torn, their faces dusty, their bodies weak, yet they refused the money. Their pride was stronger than hunger, their honesty brighter than gold. The middle boy, maybe 10 years old, added softly, "If we take your money, then it won't be kindness anymore. It will be business. We just wanted to do good." Arjun felt something break inside his chest. A warmth spread through him, unfamiliar yet powerful. It was the warmth of being reminded of something he had long forgotten: humanity. For a moment he could not speak. His throat tightened, and his eyes grew moist. He quickly looked away, afraid the children would see the billionaire cry. In his world, tears were weakness. But in this moment, they felt like truth. The youngest boy, innocent and cheerful, tried to lighten the air. "At least your car is safe now, sir," he said with a grin. His teeth were uneven, his smile missing the shine of wealth, but to Arjun it looked more valuable than any diamond he owned. Arjun finally found his voice. "What are your names?" he asked. The eldest girl replied, "I am Mira, this is Raju, and the little one is Aman." He repeated the names softly, as if carving them into memory. Mira, Raju, Aman. Names that belonged not to strangers, but to the children who had reminded him of his own childhood, hungry, barefoot, yet full of dreams. Arjun wanted to say more, but the sound of a faraway horn broke the silence. The road was no longer completely empty. He knew he had to leave, but something inside him resisted. He looked at them one last time, the three children who had refused his money yet stolen his heart. "Thank you," he whispered. The words felt strange on his tongue. He was not used to saying them. He was used to hearing others thank him. But tonight it was his turn. The children nodded politely, still smiling. To them, helping someone, even a rich man in a broken car, was nothing unusual. It was simply what their mother had taught them. Arjun returned to his SUV. The engine still refused to start, but his driver had finally arrived in another vehicle to assist. As he got inside, his eyes lingered on the children standing under the dim streetlight. Their small shadows stretched across the road, fragile yet unbroken. The car moved forward, carrying him away into the night. But his heart remained behind, stuck on that dusty road with three children who had given him a lesson more precious than any business school ever could. As the SUV disappeared, Mira gathered her brothers and whispered, "Come, we must go home. Mama will be waiting." They walked back toward their small shack in the slum, carrying no money, no gifts, only the satisfaction of having done what was right. The candle of kindness burned in their hearts, bright against the darkness of their lives. Far away, in the back seat of his car, Arjun stared out of the window. For the first time in many years, he did not think about meetings, profits, or deals. He thought about three children who had nothing, yet gave him everything. He closed his eyes, and deep inside, a seed of change began to grow. This was not the end of their story. It was only the beginning. The flashback. The city was asleep when Arjun Malhotra returned to his mansion that night. The gates opened slowly, and the long driveway glowed under golden lamps. His SUV rolled forward, its engine fixed now, its black body shining like a jewel. But inside the car, Arjun was not at peace. His heart was heavier than it had ever been. The mansion rose before him like a palace, white marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and tall glass windows that touched the sky. Servants bowed as he stepped out. A butler hurried to take his coat. A chef waited for his instructions about dinner. Everything was perfect, controlled, polished. Yet Arjun felt none of it mattered. He walked through the wide halls, past portraits of himself with presidents, businessmen, and celebrities. Each frame was proof of his success, of his empire. But tonight each picture seemed empty, like painted lies on expensive walls. He climbed to his study, a huge room with bookshelves, a desk made of mahogany, and a view of the entire city through glass walls. The city lights blinked below like stars. Normally, the sight filled him with pride. All of this is mine, he would think. But tonight, the blinking lights reminded him of the sparkle in three children's eyes. Mira, Raju, Aman. Their names echoed in his heart. He sat in his chair, but his mind wandered back to a time he had buried under layers of wealth and pride. Memories came rushing like a storm, tearing through the silence of his study. A boy in the dust, he saw himself as a boy again. Arjun, not the billionaire, but just Arjun, the son of a struggling father and a tired mother. His family had lived in a small one-room house in a crowded slum. The roof leaked when it rained. The walls cracked in summer heat. There was never enough food on the table. His father worked as a laborer, carrying bricks all day, his back bent like an old tree. His mother stitched clothes late into the night, her fingers bleeding from the needle, and little Arjun studied under a broken streetlight because they could not afford electricity at home. He remembered the sting of hunger in his stomach, the sound of his mother's coughs, the shame of wearing shoes with holes in them. But he also remembered his mother's words. "Kindness will never make you poor, my son. Help, even if you have little." Those words were the same ones Mira had spoken to him on the dusty road. The memory hit him so hard that tears filled his eyes. He covered his face with his hands. How had he forgotten? The climb to power Arjun's life had changed when he won a scholarship. He had studied harder than anyone, his eyes red from sleepless nights, his hands shaking from coffee and hunger. He dreamed of escaping poverty, of becoming someone the world would respect, and he did. Step by step, deal by deal, sacrifice by sacrifice, he climbed. He built companies, crushed competitors, earned billions. People bowed to him, newspapers called him a genius, and soon poverty was just a shadow of his past. But with success, something else changed. The boy who once gave his food to a hungry dog became the man who ignored beggars on the street. The son who once held his mother's hand through the rain became the businessman who had no time to visit her grave. The little boy's kindness was lost in the fire of ambition, until 3 poor children pushed his SUV. The mirror of his past, Arjun stood and walked to the glass window. His reflection stared back at him, a tall man in a tailored suit with a gold watch and sharp eyes. But behind that reflection he saw the boy he used to be, the boy with torn shoes holding his books tightly, whispering to himself that one day he would change his life. And now, standing in the glass tower of success, Arjun realized the boy would not be proud of the man. The memory of the children refusing his money cut through him like a knife. They had chosen dignity over hunger, kindness over greed, and he, a billionaire, had forgotten both. He whispered to the night, "What have I become?" Restless night. The mansion was silent. Servants had gone to sleep, lights were dimmed, but Arjun's study still glowed. He sat in his chair, his head heavy with memories. He remembered his mother's smile, his father's tired hands, and the promise he had made long ago to never forget where he came from, yet he had forgotten. Hours passed. The city below went darker, but Arjun could not sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Mira's words, Raju's quiet strength, Aman's innocent smile. He saw himself in them. The silence of the mansion grew unbearable. He rose suddenly, pacing the floor. He knew one thing. He could not let this end with a broken SUV and a goodbye. The children had touched a place in his heart he thought was long dead, and he would not ignore it. The decision. By the time dawn touched the horizon, Arjun had made up his mind. He would find those children again. He would not rest until he stood before them, not as a billionaire, but as a man who wanted to honor their kindness. He pressed his hands against the glass, watching the sunrise. Tomorrow, he whispered to himself. Tomorrow I will go back. I owe them more than money. I owe them my heart. And for the first time in many years, Arjun Malhotra felt alive, not as a billionaire, but as a human being. The surprise visit. The next morning, the sun rose over the city with a golden glow. Tall towers shone like mirrors. The streets buzzed with cars, and people hurried toward their busy lives. But in one part of the city, far from glass buildings and polished roads, narrow lanes twisted like broken lines, leading into the slums. Here, the air smelled of smoke from cooking fires. Children's laughter mixed with cries of hunger, and life was lived one coin at a time. In that slum, 3 children sat outside their tiny shack. Mira, the eldest, was helping her brothers with their schoolwork. She used a pencil worn down almost to nothing. Raju struggled with his sums, his brow furrowed in frustration, while little Aman hummed quietly, pretending to read even though the words on the page looked like puzzles to him. Inside the shack, their mother coughed weakly. She had been ill for days, but medicine was too costly. The candle they used for light was almost finished. Still, Mira encouraged her brothers. "We must study," she whispered. "One day, this will change everything." They didn't know that their lives were already changing. The black SUV returns far away. Arjun Malhotra's SUV rolled once again onto the dusty road, but this time he wasn't wearing a suit. His hair was brushed neatly, but he wore a simple shirt and trousers. No bodyguards followed him, no assistants trailed behind. It was just him and the driver, carrying a bag full of things he had carefully chosen the night before. As the SUV entered the slum, people stopped and stared. Cars like that never came into these broken lanes. Neighbors peeked through doorways, children ran behind curiously, and whispers spread quickly. "Who is he? Why is he here?" The car stopped outside a small shack, the very place where Mira, Raju, and Aman sat with their books. Their eyes widened as the familiar black SUV came into view. Aman tugged at his sister's sleeve, whispering excitedly, "It's him. The man from the road!" Mira's heart thudded in her chest. Why would a billionaire return to this place? She quickly stood, brushing dust off her dress, though it made little difference. Arjun stepped out slowly. He looked different without his expensive suit, more like a man than an untouchable figure. His sharp eyes softened as they landed on the children. "The meeting, Mira, Raju, Aman," he said gently. Their names slipped from his tongue like something sacred. The children froze. How did he remember? "You came back?" Mira asked, her voice a mixture of fear and wonder. Arjun smiled faintly. "I had to." He held the bag in his hand and walked closer. The neighbors gathered, watching silently, unsure whether to trust or fear the rich stranger in their midst. "I could not stop thinking about you," Arjun continued. His voice carried an honesty that even the poorest ear could hear. "You reminded me of something I lost a long time ago, and I came to thank you properly." Raju scratched his head, confused. "But sir, we only pushed your car. It was nothing." Arjun shook his head. "It was not nothing. You gave me kindness. You reminded me of my own childhood, and that means more than anything." The gift, he placed the bag on the ground and opened it. Inside were books, new, shiny, with crisp pages. There were boxes of pencils, pens, notebooks, and even small packets of sweets. The children's eyes lit up instantly. "For you," Arjun said softly, "because you deserve more than torn pages and broken pencils." Mira's hands trembled as she picked up a book. The pages smelled fresh, the letters bold and clear. It felt like holding a treasure. Aman squealed with joy as he grabbed a packet of sweets, his innocent laughter ringing like music in the dusty air. But Arjun wasn't done. He reached into his pocket and pulled out an envelope. He handed it to Mira. Inside were papers, carefully prepared, the promise of scholarships, full school fees paid, uniforms, and meals. Mira's lips parted in shock. "Sir, This, this is too much. Arjun's voice broke slightly. No, Mira, it is not enough. Nothing I give you will ever equal what you gave me on that road. You gave me my humanity back. The mother, just then their mother, weak but curious, stepped outside the shack. She wore a faded sari, her hands trembling. As she leaned on the wooden frame, her eyes widened when she saw Arjun standing there. Who are you? She asked softly. Mira rushed to support her. Mama, he is the man we helped with the car. The woman's tired eyes filled with surprise. She joined her palms in respect. They only did what I taught them, to help others. Her voice cracked. Forgive us. We have nothing to offer you. Arjun's throat tightened. He stepped closer and bowed his head slightly, something he never did to anyone. No, madam. You have given me everything. Your children are a gift to this world. The mother's eyes glistened with tears. No one had ever spoken to her like that, the promise. The neighbors whispered louder now, touched and shocked at what they were seeing, a billionaire in their slum, not with arrogance, but with humility. Children who usually begged for coins now stared in wonder at the man giving gifts freely. Arjun knelt down to face Mira, Raju, and Aman. His voice was steady. From today, you are not alone. I will make sure you study, that your mother has medicine, and that you never go hungry again. This is my promise. Tears filled Mira's eyes, but she tried to hide them. She had carried the weight of responsibility for so long that kindness almost felt heavy. Thank you, sir, she whispered. Arjun placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. No, Mira, thank you. The beginning of change. As Arjun walked back to his SUV, children from the slum surrounded Mira, Raju, and Aman, staring at their new books and sweets. The siblings smiled shyly, sharing their joy. Their mother sat quietly, her hands pressed together in silent prayer. Inside the car, Arjun looked once more at the little shack. His eyes softened. For the first time in years, he felt a peace that money had never given him, and he knew this was not charity, this was not business. This was the start of something much bigger, a connection of hearts, the ripple effect. The morning after Arjun's visit, the slum was buzzing like never before. Word had spread quickly, the billionaire had come to Mira's house. People whispered, in surprise, some in disbelief. In a place where the poor were often ignored, pushed aside or forgotten, a rich man entering their narrow lanes felt like a story from another world. Children gathered around Mira, Raju, and Aman, staring at the shiny books, the fresh pencils, the colorful packets of sweets. For the first time, the siblings were not the ones being pitied. They were the ones being admired. "Show me the book again," a small boy asked eagerly. "Did he really promise to send you to school?" Another whispered. "Will he come back?" Someone else asked, wide-eyed. Mira held the book close to her chest, afraid it might vanish like a dream. She smiled softly, though her eyes carried tears. "Yes, he said he will help us study." Their mother, lying inside, felt the neighbors' footsteps and voices. She closed her eyes and whispered a prayer, not for riches, but for the kindness she had seen in a man the world called untouchable. Arjun's inner change back in his glass mansion. Arjun sat by the window again, but this time he was not staring at the city with pride. He was staring with questions. The taste of the slum was still fresh in his memory, the smell of smoke, the cracked walls, the way Mira's mother's frail hands had trembled when she greeted him. For years, he had thought power came from deals, money, and fear. But yesterday, in that broken shack, he had felt something stronger than power, respect born from humility. He touched the mahogany desk in front of him, polished smooth, and remembered the rough wooden frame of Mira's shack. He compared the two and realized one held wealth, but the other held warmth. His assistant entered the room with a file of new contracts. "Sir, the board is waiting for your approval." Arjun looked at the papers and then back at the memory of Raju's shy smile. For the first time in years, he pushed the file aside. "Not now," he said quietly. The assistant blinked, surprised. Arjun's world was shifting. The slum transforms days turned into weeks, and true to his word, Arjun returned again. This time, he brought doctors who examined Mira's mother. Medicine was given, her cough slowly softened, and color returned to her pale face. He also arranged uniforms and proper bags for Mira, Raju, and Aman. The first day they walked to school in clean clothes, the entire slum watched with pride. Neighbors clapped, some cried, and children followed behind them as if they were heroes. At school, things weren't easy. Some students mocked their background, but the siblings walked taller, remembering Arjun's words. Dignity is stronger than gold. And when they opened their new books, their determination outshone every insult. Back in the slum, Arjun's visits created ripples. Other children, once hopeless, now begged their parents, "Please let us study too." Neighbors started pooling coins to buy notebooks, inspired by the change they saw. The small candle of kindness had spread into dozens of little flames. The World Watch's news eventually caught hold of the story. A photographer, passing through, clicked a picture of Arjun in the slum, kneeling beside Mira with a bag of books. The image spread across newspapers and social media. Headlines read, "Billionaire visits slum, honors poor children's kindness." Some praised him, saying he was an example for the rich. Others doubted, calling it a show. But for Arjun, the opinions didn't matter. What mattered were the children's smiles, the sound of their mother's laughter returning, the sight of neighbors daring to dream again. In board meetings, his directors whispered, "Sir is changing. He speaks less about profits and more about schools." But Arjun didn't care. His heart was finally lighter. The children's growth. Every evening after school, the three siblings studied with more passion than ever before. Mira dreamed of becoming a teacher. Raju wanted to be an engineer, and little Aman, always curious, said he would be a doctor so no mother would go without medicine again. Their small shack, once silent with sorrow, now glowed with hope. Their mother watched them with shining eyes. "My children will have the life I could never give," she whispered to herself. Sometimes at night they would sit together and remember the day on the dusty road. Aman would laugh. "Imagine if we had not pushed that car." Raju would shake his head. "It was fate. God sent us that test." And Mira, looking at the stars, would say softly, "It was kindness. That's what changed everything." Arjun's reflection. One night, Arjun returned again, this time quietly. He didn't bring cameras or gifts, only himself. He sat outside the shack with Mira's mother, sipping tea in a small clay cup. For the first time in years, he tasted simplicity. The tea was too sweet, the cup chipped, but to Arjun, it was better than the finest wines. He listened as the mother spoke of her late husband, of her struggles, of how she feared her children would never escape the cycle of poverty. Tears welled in his eyes as he realized how close their story had been to his own. When he left that night, the stars above seemed brighter. He whispered to himself, "I am not saving them. They are saving me." The ripple effect kindness, once sown, never dies. It grows, it spreads, it multiplies. The children's single act of pushing a car had become a wave that touched not just their family but the entire community, and even the billionaire himself. And yet, this was only the beginning. Because soon Arjun would take a step so bold, so unexpected, that the whole nation would turn its eyes toward him. The nation takes notice weeks passed, and the bond between Arjun Malhotra and the three children only grew stronger. What had started as a small act of kindness on a dusty road had now become a story that refused to stay hidden. Newspapers wrote about it, television channels showed the picture of the billionaire kneeling in the slum, and millions of people across the nation began to talk. Some said, "Maybe the rich can change." Others whispered, "Perhaps kindness can still live in the world." For Arjun, it was never about the headlines. He no longer cared about his image in business magazines or on TV. What mattered to him was the sparkle in Mira's eyes when she held a new book, the quiet determination in Raju's voice when he solved a difficult problem, and the innocent laughter of little Aman when he ran around with other children free from hunger. But one evening, as he sat in his study, staring at the glowing city, below, Arjun realized something deeper. It is not enough to change 3 lives. I must do more. I must build something bigger. The big decision the next morning, Arjun called a press conference. Cameras flashed. Reporters filled the hall, eager to hear what the billionaire had to announce. Everyone expected a new project, maybe another skyscraper or a foreign deal. But Arjun stepped up to the podium, his voice calm, yet full of weight. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, "a few weeks ago my car broke down on a lonely road. I was helped not by my wealth, not by my influence, but by 3 poor children who had nothing yet gave me everything. Their kindness reminded me of my own forgotten past, and today because of them I have made a decision." The room fell silent. Reporters leaned forward, pens ready. "I am starting a foundation," Arjun continued, "to provide education, food, and health care to children living in slums. Every child deserves a chance, no matter where they are born. This is not charity. This is justice." The hall erupted in questions, flashes of cameras, shouts of surprise, but Arjun only smiled. In his heart, he knew this was the right path. The visit to school days later, the first steps of the foundation were taken. A small building near the slum was converted into a school. Bright walls were painted, desks were placed, books were arranged. Children who had once roamed the streets barefoot now entered the classrooms with wide eyes and shy smiles. Arjun stood at the entrance with Mira, Raju, and Aman. They wore clean uniforms, their hair neatly combed, their faces glowing with pride. As they stepped into the classroom, other children followed behind them, inspired. Mira turned to Arjun. "Sir, this is more than we ever dreamed." Arjun's throat tightened. He placed a hand on her shoulder. "No, Mira. This is only the beginning of your dream. One day, you will lead this place yourself." Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of hope. The mother's gratitude. That evening, their mother sat with Arjun outside the shack, sipping tea once again. Her cough was lighter now, her body stronger thanks to proper medicine. She looked at her children studying by candlelight, their laughter echoing in the alley. "Sir," she said softly, "I don't know how to thank you." Arjun shook his head. "Please don't thank me. It was your children who changed me. They gave me back something I lost long ago." Her eyes glistened. "Then may God bless you, because you did not just lift up my children, you lifted me as a mother." Arjun looked away quickly, hiding the tears in his eyes. For a man who once believed tears were weakness, he now understood they were strength. The bye. Nation reacts. The story spread further. Television anchors replayed the images of Arjun walking through the slums, children running beside him. Social media filled with messages, "If a billionaire can remember kindness, maybe we all can." Other businessmen began visiting poor areas, offering scholarships and food. Politicians promised to improve schools. Ordinary people started giving more freely, inspired by the story. The ripple had turned into a wave. One journalist wrote, "3 poor children pushed a car, and in doing so, they pushed an entire nation toward compassion." The children's. 3 months later, Mira stood at the front of her classroom, reading aloud with confidence. Raju built small models of bridges with sticks, showing his teachers his dream of becoming an engineer. Aman played with a toy stethoscope, telling everyone, "I will be a doctor one day." Their lives, once trapped in poverty, were now shining with possibility. And every time they laughed, their mother's heart filled with pride. One evening, as they sat together under the stars, Aman asked, "Didi, what if we had not pushed that car that day?" Mira smiled, looking at the sky. "Then maybe the car would still be stuck, but we would be stuck too. Kindness moves more than cars. Aman! It moves lives." Arjun's peace, Arjun often visited them, but he no longer came as a billionaire. He came as a friend, as someone who listened, someone who cared. The boardrooms still called his name, but his true pride now was not in profits, but in the laughter of children who once had no future. One night, standing alone by his mansion window, Arjun thought back to that evening on the dusty road, the broken SUV, the three small figures pushing with all their might, the moment that changed everything. He smiled to himself. "They saved me," he whispered. "And because of them, I can save others." For the first time in decades, Arjun Malhotra felt peace in his heart.